Hi, it's Barbara from the Caring Arts Foundation. I have another project for you. Today we're going to make harvest pumpkins out of strips of paper. Now I know we're all doing small Thanksgiving gatherings this year, but there's no reason you can't still set a beautiful table, or you can use these as a display for your window, and they're very easy to make, and just a few simple materials. The size pumpkin you make actually depends on the size paper you decide to use, but it's the same process for all of them. This large size pumpkin was made from 12-inch scrapbooker's paper. This smaller size was made from 8.5 by 11 colored cardstock. And I also made this little squash pumpkin out of construction paper. But the colors you choose and the size is really up to you. In addition to the paper, you need just a few things. You'll need a ruler. You'll need a hole punch, is very important, and some scissors. You'll also need some kind of a circle template. I use caps. This is a cap off of an herb container, but possibly the same size as a pill container. Any circle about that size will work well for you. You also need a pencil and a Sharpie marker. Can be black, brown, some dark color. You will need some Elmer's glue, a bit of tape, and then you'll also need some curling ribbon, and then whatever paper you choose. So I'm going to get started. I think I'm going to make this medium-sized pumpkin, which basically calls for 8.5 by 11 cardstock. And we'll get started. So I like to work with Harvest colors, but really you can use any colors you like. I have a selection of colors here, and I've kind of chosen a color palette of browns and oranges and purples, but you can use contemporary colors, colors that match your dining room, or you can use just one color. That works fine too. The first thing you have to do though is to cut some strips of paper. Now I've already cut these out, and basically for these pumpkins I used 15 strips of paper, 3 colors, to make all my different pumpkins. Like I said, the size you end up with will depend on the size of paper you choose. I'm using 8.5 by 11 paper here, so I'm going to make 5 strips of each color. In order to do that, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to make a mark at 1 inch. And if you use the paper going the other way, you'll get a smaller pumpkin. And then I'm going to turn it around and do that on the other end. And then I'm going to just rule in between them so I have a line to follow. But you can actually use a razor if you want to make perfectly straight lines. I happen to like imperfect lines. So I'm just going to use my scissors, and I'm not even going to worry about cutting these perfectly straight, because I think it's more interesting when they're not perfectly straight. So I'm just going to cut these out, but at least I have a guideline to follow. And in fact, I almost like to go out of my way to make sure they aren't straight. They're a little jaggedy. I think they have more character that way. So they don't, you can see they don't follow my line perfectly. And there we go. So I have my colors. This is going to be the colors of my pumpkin. And then I'm going to use green for the leaf. And we need to cut some circles. And basically those are for the base of the pumpkin. They kind of help hold it all together. So we need 3 circles. They can be any color really, because they don't honestly show. So you can make them any color you want. And they don't have to be perfect because, again, they don't really show. So I'm going to cut out my 3 circles here. There we go. You can see my circles are not perfect, and that's okay. Now what we want to do is we want to punch holes in all of these. So I'm going to take my hole punch and I'm going to put it right to the center. Actually, I'm going to put them all 3 together. It'll be easier. I'm going to put them all together and put my hole punch to the center and just cut a hole right in the middle of those 3 circles. And then I need to cut some holes at the ends of all these strips of paper, at both ends. So I'm gonna try to cut 5. I don't know if I can cut through 5 at once, but I'm gonna put them together at the end, and I'm gonna put my hole punch in so it's just about maybe 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the paper, right in the center, and I'm just gonna cut right through those. Now, you may not be able to cut through them all at once. It's not important to do that. But you should try to get the holes where they kind of all align. So I'm going to try that again. And there you can see I'm about 1/4 inch up and right in the center of the circle. And then I'm going to do that with all the other ones too. Now I've got holes at both ends of my strips. The next thing is we're going to put it all together. So we need a piece of curling ribbon. I think I'm going to use this green. And you need a fairly good sized piece. Something like that. It's probably longer than we need, but better to be too long than too short. And I'm going to make a knot at the one end. And in fact, I'm going to make a double knot because that's going to hold everything together. Then I'm going to thread that through my bottom circle. It's going to go all the way through and the knot is going to stop it, hopefully. But just to be sure, I'm going to tape it down. I'm going to put a piece of tape right on top, just to make sure it holds. And then just cut off the end. In fact, I'm going to put another piece of tape. You're not going to see any of that because that's going to be on the bottom. All right. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to take our strips of paper, and I want them to be every other color. So I'm going to take an orange, a light purple, a dark purple, and then I'm just going to keep alternating until I have all my strips together. There we go. I'm going to kind of line them up. So hopefully the holes will sort of line up. Now if they don't line up perfectly, I'm going to take my pencil and kind of poke it in there so that the holes line up. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ribbon right through that bottom hole. Hard to get in there. So I'm going to end up with a circle on the bottom and then all my strips together, and then I'm going to put the next 2 circles through, and then I'm going to take my strips of paper and I'm going to bend it around, and again I want to get my holes lined up, so I'm going to take my pencil and help me do that. And put the ribbon right through those holes. So now I've got something that looks like that. Now what will determine the shape of your pumpkin is how long you allow your ribbon to be. So if you allow your ribbon to be bigger, you're going to get a more round pumpkin like this. If you make your ribbon shorter, you're going to get a more of a squash looking pumpkin, like this. So you can decide what you want your pumpkin to look like. I'm going to make mine kind of round, so I'm going to let it come up, and I'm going to put a knot on the end to hold it. Just like that. I'm going to double it again just to make sure it holds. And there we go. It's the beginning of my pumpkin, but it obviously it doesn't look like a pumpkin yet. I'm going to cut this ribbon a little bit. So the next thing to do is to spread it all out. And that's what's going to make it look like a pumpkin. And you want to make sure you're alternating your colors. If you're using multiple colors, you know, you can make this all one color and it'll look just fine. But here we have our pumpkin. Now in order to hold that, we're going to glue those circles down. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to put some glue on the bottom of this circle underneath. You don't need very much. You can see here, I don't have very much glue. It's kind of close to the ribbon. And I'm going to use that to hold the pumpkin down. And you can still move it around. So you want to separate all your segments to make sure your pumpkin looks like a pumpkin. And if it's easier, you can also put tape on the bottom, and that will hold it just as well, and it won't show. And then the next thing we're going to do is glue the inside circle. You have two circles on the inside, one on top of each other. We're going to take our glue again, and on the inside, we're going to go in there and again put some glue under the bottom one. If you like, if it's easier, you can use a Q-tip for this. You can put the glue on the Q-tip. Might be a little easier to reach in there and do that. Spread it around on the bottom of your circle. And then, again, swing your segments around until you get them where you want. And now between those two circles, it's going to start to hold it all in place. So you let that dry. So once the glue is dry, you want to kind of reach in there, and you have one more circle that's sort of in there loose. You want to just put some more glue on top of that circle. And then you're going to turn the whole thing upside down, and you want that little circle to fall to the top of the pumpkin. And you're going to use that, press that down. You're going to use that to glue that top part. And again, if anything is still loose, you can still adjust it. And you want to let that glue dry. And now the last thing, once the glue is dry, you can turn it over. And we need to cut a leaf for the top of our pumpkin. I'm going to take green, but honestly, I've used purple too, or brown. Actually, I think I'm going to, do I have some brown? I think I'm going to make a brown one. I have some brown paper. So I'm just going to draw out a leaf shape. And actually, you can use two leaves if you want. I think I'll use brown and green. I think that'll be pretty. So just draw out, you freehand a leaf, and you can make any kind of leaf you like. Cut up my leaf. And then I'm going to cut one more, I think, in green. I'm going to use this one to trace another one. They don't have to be exactly the same. And you don't even, I'm kind of freehanding it here. These don't have to be exactly. And then you want to take those 2 leaves and you need to punch a hole in them because you're going to string them through also. And if you like, you can put someone's name if you're going to use this as a place setting, or you can just draw a leaf design, which I'm going to do. Like that. And then I'm just going to put these together, and I'm going to string them through. And I'm going to put another color in here also, just because I want to. You don't need to explain these things to anyone. It's your choice. It's your design, your choice. And I'm just going to tie those together. And then you want to curl them. That's why we're using curling ribbon. And there we go. And you can even add some little tea lights to them.